everyone, it's Imogen and welcome back to Colouring Kid. I hope you're all doing well. In today's video I'm going to be sharing how to do a stenciled cloud background. I was asked to do this by a lovely lady called Kate Jones who commented and asked about it, and I'm so sorry it's taken so long to get around to doing this. I have done other videos in the past with pastel and how I do a soft pastel base for backgrounds and just generally items. Also different types of pastel backgrounds. If I can find some of those videos, I'll put them in the description for you. And I've also done a colour pencil cloud sky, and I'll briefly show you the example for that. But today it's actually going to be a stencil, really simple, that you can make yourself and use to create your own cloud sky. So I'll just show you the examples of the pages so you can get a feel for the type of background I'm going for. The one that I've already done a video on is a very similar sky, also from a Kirby Roseanne's book, where I use pencil and then white gel pen to white out all of the clouds. So if this is the sort of thing you're after, I do have a video for that and I will find that for you and put it in the description. And then yeah, I think I've done some sort of video sharing how I use pastel as a base, because I did use soft pastel for a lot of this, for the dinosaur and the background, and then I went over with pencil, so that's a different technique in itself, and we're not using colour pencil today on this particular background. And then there's two ways you can go about doing a pastel background, at least the ones I've tried. So the one we're doing today is just a straight soft pastel background on a white background. So you start with the white paper and just apply it. Now that's a really good way of getting a softer effect. If you just want quite a soft sort of colour, you can do that. So that's what we're going to be doing today. The other one that I have tried though that I really like, and something that you could do and adapt the technique to really easily, is using a base of a colour first and then putting pastel over it. So for this particular background I did a soft pastel base of a light pink, and then I applied the stencil and more colour on top. So if you were to do this, you'd probably want a paper with just a little bit of tooth, just so that it can actually grip the pastel with multiple layers. But I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but even the lighter areas down here aren't completely white. They do have a base of pink. So what you could do is, if you wanted this sort of effect with a darker background, a more concentrated background, is do your base of your chosen colour and then follow along with what I'm doing today. So you'd have a colour already as a starting point. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. So there's many ways you can create the stencil shape. I'm just using really cheap, inexpensive card, and it depends how big your background is. If you've got quite a small one and you want small cloud shapes, then I'd recommend obviously cutting smaller cloud shapes. But it's really as simple as, I'm just gonna cut some kind of curved shapes of different sizes so that I can get different effects, and just using these as the basis for what I'm going to do my background on. So you want to keep the bit with the curves. Don't worry about the other bit of card, because that would give a different effect if we were to use that. So that's one, just to get a little bit of difference in the shapes. I'm going to do another one, and we can mix and match the shapes you want to use. But this is just very, very, very easy. Nothing special. That's okay. So as I said, if you do have a smaller background, then I'd recommend doing lots of smaller curves, sort of that sort of size. But I'll stick with the ones that I've got for now, and I'll just do it on this card. Now I love using soft pastel because you can get a lot of different like saturation with them. So I've had a few over my time of using them. I started out with these Rembrandt ones, and these were my mum's and they are great, and I had them for years and years, but I found that because they're probably like 30 plus years old, the darker colours definitely work better, but the ones that are lighter aren't as pigmented as they used to be, and some of them are getting quite dry and chalky. So I tend not to use these very much anymore, but I will use them if I've got a toothier paper that can take them, because if I'm trying to layer them on a paper that's really smooth, they just don't stick because they're less pigmented. Then I went to these ones, these soft pastels. These are really cheap. You can find these anywhere on Amazon for £10 or so. I imagine the Rembrandt ones were quite a lot more expensive because they are artist grade ones. These are very small, easy to use. If you're just starting out and you want something really cheap to try, these are great. As you can see, this is one of the previous stencils that I've used. Some of the lighter colours are getting quite used up, but they do have a great range. Even some neons here, which I have used in the past, and they're really cool to try out. But yeah, this gives you a wider colour range, but obviously not as good quality, but they're still pretty good. I used them a lot, and I still use them because there are some colours in here that you don't have in other sets. But my favourites are the ones that I'm going to show you next, which I typically use. I got them at the very beginning of lockdown. So I've had them for about 2 years, and these are the Rembrandt ones, but this is a 60 set of half stick pastels. So they are the same as the ones that my granny had, but they are obviously a different sort of make, but they're both Rembrandt. I've got more of a choice with these, and the colours, some of them are similar, some of them are completely different. So these are the half sticks. So again, really, really good size. And these are amazing. Now, I use them for different things. The method I'm going to be using today is just using cotton balls and actually just rubbing them on the pastel to get the colour. You can scrape it off as well and use it as a powder, but I find that's a lot messier and just not necessary for this type of technique. But these are great because there's some lighter colours, which I love. But again, they're not going to show up as well on a paper with less tooth because it just won't stick to the paper. So I do mix sometimes, but especially these greens, I love these. These are more expensive. So for a 60 set, I believe these are about £40 on Amazon. But again, they're artist quality and you're getting 60 colours. So that's really good. Now, I should mention actually the reason I'm using the cotton balls, although they're in a cotton bud box, I don't know why, but I use these because I used cotton pads for a long time, but for some reason they just didn't work as well, and I'd always fold them up and use them, and just, yeah, these are a lot softer and they cover a really large surface area, but yeah, they're just a lot softer and give a smoother effect, a smoother finish on them. So that's why I stick to these. That's what I'm going to be using. Now, I think I'm going to go for, let's just go for green because there's some good colours, and I never use greens for a cloud background, so you can apply this to any colour. So essentially the way I'm going to do it firstly is just to show you with one colour, and then I'll show you how you can adapt it if you want to add different colours in and make it more interesting. So I'm just going to start, let's go for, I want a colour that's fairly obvious to see. Let's go for this kind of sap green here. So sometimes if the pastels have a coating on them, you just need to scrape away a bit so that you can actually get some of the colour out. But I'm just going to put some colour onto the cotton pad and then just move in circles with the colour. And if you're worried about it moving, you could put this down with washi tape. So you're just aware of the fact that you don't want the washi tape to then stick onto your colouring page. But it is really as simple as just rubbing the colour onto the paper. The only thing that really is skill, I guess, not even really skill, but where to place it and applying the layers and trying to get a smooth finish with them. But typically I've done this with blue, I've done this with pink, and I think that's all I've tried so far. Maybe purple, I can't remember. But yeah, that's really it. And this is obviously quite rough because it's just on a bit of card, but that is what it ends up being like. Now, obviously it doesn't look like a cloud background at the moment because we only put one down, but then you just go about switching them around, seeing what you want. Now, I would suggest getting a few different effects, just trying to layer them a little bit so that you don't end up with the same shapes next to each other. You want them to look a tiny bit random. Now, the only other thing with these, when you are then applying the next layer, the next row of the clouds, you don't want to get the colour right up to the edge of the previous one, because the whole point of this, or at least the effect I go for with this, is that you want a little bit of the white showing as well as the colour. Obviously, if you're doing the version with a coloured background already there, then that doesn't really apply. But that's how everything starts to sort of build together. So I'm just going to continue doing a few more layers, and I'll probably speed it up, but that is essentially the method for making your clouds. So I've just added a few more layers. Hopefully you kind of get the idea of it, and it's so simple. That's the thing. It's not totally accurate to what clouds would look like, but it is fun and easy and gives an effect really quickly. It's something a bit different from just you know, a one colour background, because with this you get the gradation of the colour that you choose. So the only thing that I would recommend doing after this is just taking a clean cotton ball and just going over the lines, just to get rid of any excess pastel, and just to kind of merge everything together, make the lines a little less you know, crisp, sort of blur it in a little bit. Now you can put fixative on if you want to. I don't really use fixative, and I find it's okay, but it depends what you're, you know, using this technique for. So as I said, at this point you could call it done, and I do this lots of times and really like the effect that it gives. The other thing you could do, as I've said, is put a base down first and then go over and do the exact same thing. So if I was to use a base, I'd probably use a lighter colour like this and then go over with the darker colour. Similarly, if you're wanting to have a bit of contrast with different colours and you're picking a you know, a colour that you're using for the background, you can pick a few contrasting ones. So for example, I might use this green as the base and then go over with the green that we've just used as the main colour, but then possibly use an accent colour like this, and maybe even something else. But it might be quite interesting to add an accent colour, and you could then layer on top of the clouds that you've already done. If I just show you here, for example, if we use that green, the teal almost, you can build up the layer of colour like I did on the fawn page in Mythomorphia, because I used pinks and purples for that and it came out really cool. So yeah, you could start layering in your accent colours. I mean, that hasn't really showed up very well because it's quite a light colour, but just seeing what you can do with it. And there are so many things you can do with it, and the thing is, every time you do it, it's going to be unique. Unless you stick with the same stencils, I tend to just play around with them because I don't want the colour rubbing off. But it is so simple to do, and I really enjoy doing them. So that's what I would suggest. That's how I would do it. Once you figure out what colour you want for the background, as I said, there are different ways you can go about actually doing it, but You know, if you're unsure about it, maybe start with something simple like blue for a blue background. Use a couple of colours. You know, I would maybe, out of my set, use a couple of the light blues with the sky blues, and then use an accent colour just to bring it all together, which could be good. So yeah, that's really what I do. That's well, there isn't really a you know, solid technique for it, but I've seen many other people do backgrounds like this and they always turn out great, and they're so quick to do, and you don't even have to use colour pencil. So yeah, that's the technique. So I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Take care everyone. Bye.